Yeah. So, good morning. This again, Shashi
Good
Mohan
morning. Good morning.
from EAI, and today, again on Sunday morning. I hope that everybody is keeping safe because the problem is not yet over. Though we feel that uh, that it's over, but the numbers are growing and another situation remains same. Medicines may come, but the situation right now is that we must have to continue the things which we were doing it past couple of months. So you have to save yourself. I hope everybody is doing that. So today, in our EI Biz Talk, we have Mr. Rajan, and he is a very senior professional entrepreneur and a transformer coach in agility and related areas. We were just talking before we went live that agility is something which is required even when you plan, when you start at a for beginners as well. So because normally when we talk about bringing agility in your businesses, in your processes, we understand that it's always the bigger companies which basically practice it. But today we are going to hear Mr. Rajan, the agility and DevOps trends in you know reshaping your business. So I think we just thought that it would be quite good for everybody to hear him and get benefited. So and we today we have Sandeep Singh, who is really doing wonderful work at his own label as well as at the EAI. And we have Himanshu, who is basically doing the technical part. So later on, maybe few people would join here, but we have a limitation of maximum number of people who can join. And but we are live everywhere. Just one last before I'll give the dash to Mr. Rajan that will you can write your questions, queries here wherever you are seeing this video, this webinar. We will try to answer that. And if anything is left out, you do write us at EI, connect at eiindia.com. We'll come back to you and answer. So with this, Mr. Rajan, please start your presentation for the day.
Sure. Thank you, Shashi and Sandeep, and thank you, EAI, for giving me the opportunity. Well, just a quick introduction. I have about 26 plus years of experience, mainly in the consulting space, right? Helping different clients take up their own transformation journeys in agile and scaled agile and so on, right? And also DevOps. Now, I'll share my learnings as we go along. I put in some slides which are, just to kind of trigger the conversation, of course, right? I mean, don't think I've kind of prepared anything special, right? What I've done is I've consolidated few thoughts and trends, whatever is going on, and we can use those. And then, whatever questions come across, I'll try to answer those. I'm also a learner on this journey, right? I mean, if you look at the pace with which the industry is moving, whether it is technology or transformation, I don't think anybody can claim to be an expert, honestly, right? So I'm a learner, and I'll try to answer whatever best I can based on my experience, right? So now with that, I'll share my screen and let me know if you are able to see it.
As you said, you have prepared nothing special, but I think being a special person, uh, you are there. So whatever you will say, that will be special only for us.
Thank you
And
so much.
we are fortunate to have you on EAI Biz Talk show.
Thank you for the kind words. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
All
Yes.
right. So we are going to basically talk about two things, right? And stop me wherever you have questions or you want to discuss anything, right? Mainly around the agile and DevOps trend. But before we go into that, I think we need to just look at broadly what is happening all around us, right? So there is something called digital Darwinism, right, the theory of Darwin. But what's happening is that the evolution of human behavior, right, when the society and technology evolve faster than the big businesses are able to adopt. Now, what that means is that if you look at the compute power that is available, right? You look at the cloud, right? You look at the sorry is
Yeah,
do
it's okay.
I need
Please.
to pause? Was there a question?
No, no, this is okay.
Okay, all right.
Please.
Sorry. Right. So if you look at, right, I mean, if you compare a few years ago, I mean, I remember I bought a desktop, right, and if I now that was like about 20 years ago. If I look at the configuration it had versus the configuration my phone would have, right, my phone would possibly have like a 50x configuration of that desktop, right? So if you look at the compute power, if you look at the resources that are now available, right, the technology is definitely evolving faster than the businesses can adopt. And if you look at some of the examples, right, now these companies used to be in the Fortune 500 at some point of time or the other, right, and they kind of went down because they could not cope up with the pace of change, or they did not see what was coming their way, right? So the Kodak, the Blockbusters, and so on. And the new leaders that have emerged are the ones who have mastered the art of delivery. They have mastered the art of technology, right? And they have mastered the art of knowing their customer very well, right? And if you look at purely how many companies that were there on the list of Fortune 500 in 1955, and were those companies were they surviving even in 2017? Only 12% of those companies survived, right? The remaining is like a new list that has emerged. Now, what that means is that, right, when the technology changes at an exponential rate and the organizations are not able to cope up, right? So the blue line is, how the organization is trending, possibly slowly trying to adopt, right? Ultimately, they'll get to a spot of no return. And then, a major reboot of the organization will be required, which might also mean that the organization goes extinct after that, right? So if you compare that to today's scenario, right, if you see a lot of startups entering the space, challenging an incumbent which has been there in the industry for a very long time, right? Not just bringing in a new technology or a product mindset, but it is also a new business model. If you look at Zara was like a startup till few years ago. It's still working in a very startup kind of mindset. It's a retail brand, and they are able to think of a new design and bring it to the store within 21 days, right? And there's also a case study on how Zara does that. Now, for fashion brands which have been there for a very long time, they were not able to cope up with that, right? I mean, their production cycles and getting it to store was anything like from 9 months to 12 months. Now, think of the kind of challenge a company can throw if they adopt the right business model, along with, of course, technology and agility, right? And when we talk about agility, it is not just in context of technology, right? It is not just about adopting some Scrum or scaled agile or anything. It is about the mindset. And when people start talking about the mindset, it will seep in into how the business is thinking about their products, how the marketing is thinking about how to launch and gather more launch campaigns and gather more people, right? And how the technology teams possibly will think about, okay, if we have to build this quickly, how we can do this and do that in a shorter time to market, right? So agility is a mindset, and it's all pervading across all functions of an organization. And only when we kind of bring it together, the organizations will be able to get to the next S curve. Now, some of the examples, I'm sure all of you are aware of it. Uh, Tesla became the most valuable automaker, and worth more than GM, Ford, FCA combined. Now that's like a very big statement, right? Think of when Ford started and how successful it has been all these years. And here comes a new company which says we have EVs, and we are going to change the world. Now, till few years ago, nobody would have thought that you'll see a watchmaker, right, which is called Apple, right? When Apple entered the market, people were amazed by the iPhone and all of that, but then they didn't see that possibly there is a competition growing up when Apple entered the watch market also, right? And they are now the biggest watchmaker in the world. Similarly, if you look at auto, in the R&D team, BMW plans to hire more developers, which means that the role of technology, whether it is a watch or a car or anything else, is now mainstream. It is not something which is supporting the business. It is, very much a part of the business. It's the core, right? I'm sure you would have seen, Satya Nadella talk about it. There are many other leaders who have also shared a very similar sentiment that every company is now a software company, right? You think about, a cab company, you think about airlines, you think about hotel, right? Look at what Airbnb has been able to achieve with leveraging technology, right? Or, the kind of integrated software that is now available in an automobile, right? And so on. So I think the view is that in about 10 years, there would not be any differentiation between a tech industry and other industry, right? It will be basically all in one. The technology will be sitting at the core of every industry very soon. And we are already seeing those signs with some of the examples that I just talked about. Okay, so what are some of the overarching trends, right, in business before we get down into Agile or DevOps or anything, right? I think there is this big push about project to product mindset. Now, you might think that this is limited to, possibly big companies, but, think of these startups, right? I mean, people are starting with a new product idea. And in fact, this kind of originated more from the startups when they were able to turn around an altogether new product line, new business model, and then the big corporations were kind of catching up on that in that space. But what is also happening now is that a lot of the big corporations, right, what they have done is they have spin off their own smaller organizations which are more nimble, which are set up like a startup, and their objective is, hey, go figure out this industry and we want to be the leader of that, right? For example, if you see a lot of banks are actually doing that. They got challenged with the fintechs, right? A bank which used to take about 25 days to open a saving bank account was challenged by a fintech which provided a new bank account within few hours, right? Now, how do the organizations cut down on their entire time to market of any product or the journey of onboarding a customer or even providing value, right? So the focus is now totally on generating business value, right, and measuring it throughout. Also, it is about the customer experience, right? And customer experience is not just how the front end looks and behaves. It is even long after the customer has bought what your product is, how their experience continues, which means how do they feel when they are using that product, right? What is the kind of service that they are experiencing from the brand? What is their engagement with the brand on an ongoing basis? Are they a loyalist? Are they advocating that brand, right? So that engagement continues even beyond just the sell process, right? And it is very important to also think of the entire journey and not just focus on selling something and kind of getting away from the customer. If you look at the whole process of customer feedback now, right? Till few years ago, if you remember, every product would used to have an address that if you have any feedback or queries, please write to us. There used to be like a postal address, and now nobody would like send out a letter, right, with their feedback. But think of the channels that are available now, right? A customer can, if they don't like what they're experiencing, whether it is the product, whether it is the service, whether it is the call center, keeping them on hold for a very long time. There's so many channels that are available now, right, in terms of social media. And people can actually go and start creating a perception of the brand very soon through their network. So customer feedback is now to be taken seriously, and something has to be done about that, right? I mean, we can no longer just say that, hey, we are working on your problem and hopefully we'll solve it soon, right? People want to know what you're doing about it. Do you even care about their feedback or not, right? So there's a lot of tools and landscape around how do you analyze the customer feedback on social, otherwise, and so on, and then how do you take it to closure and make sure that you close the loop with the customer, that hey, we value you, we heard you, this is what we have done about it, right? And then you kind of build your advocates on that journey. Time to market, of course, right? If you're talking about product, you're not in isolation, you are sitting in an ecosystem. There would be competitors, there would be other products that are also evolving. So even if you have a very great idea, time to market is a very critical aspect of it, right? If you don't launch it when it is still a novel idea, it will lose its sheen very soon, and the competitors are going to catch up, right, very soon on that, right? So we'll dive into it a bit in next few slides, but the other trend, of course, is the industry blur, right? The way you experience your Uber booking is the same level of experience you want from your bank, right? And what are the factors that are leading to that? So when you talk about product mindset, right? I mean, I'm sure all of you have seen this, right? In terms of the lean startup and agile thinking. Uh, I think one of the mistake, right? And I'm just calling that a mistake, which could be possibly not, maybe like a very strong word, but I think one of the things that people tend to do very early on is, hey, I have an idea, let's start building it, right? And it's not just about startups; it's also about large organizations, right? It's prevalent all across, and the initial cycle of spending time, right, and actually understanding why we are doing something, what is it for, who are our customers, what do they want, what are their stated and unstated needs and all, right? Using something like design thinking stage, which is on the left of this, to start with, right? Possibly validating the idea itself before even jumping into experimenting with it, right? So that's the first stage of just validating your idea. And uh, there's no harm in spending time at this stage. I think the time that normally people take between an idea to experimenting it is very short, and that leads to subsequently discovering that possibly there are some challenges that we didn't think of when designing the product. uh, Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes,
Is
yes,
that
we can.
okay? Sorry, for a moment I thought I lost you. All right.
Okay.
So that's the first stage, right, where you basically diverge and then converge on the idea itself, right? And this should kind of be given its due time and effort, and then you start experimenting it, right? At this stage, basically, you're talking about hypothesis, right? Okay, you created some hypothesis, now you want to test it, right? You want to just experiment it. So we are talking about an MVP, right? A minimal viable product, and now there are like different acronyms also, minimum marketable product and most valuable product and so on, whatever, right? I mean, end of the day, you're wanting to try out, experiment, right, what you have thought of. And again, this itself is a good stage to spend time on. There are different strategies to experiment. It could be limited number of people, like possibly small number of people, but across different geographies or different domains, or people from within the same domain who are experts, whatever your audience is, however you want to try it. Even this stage has lot of iterations. It might need a lot of iterations, because even your experimentation and an hypothesis will continue to evolve, right? And then when you get to a spot where you say, okay, now we have a good hypothesis, we have tested it, it's time to build it, right? And that's where the most commonly understood cycle of agile comes in, where people see teams who are working in 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, whatever number of weeks of iteration. They build a product, they quickly put it out, right? And of course, there is a cycle of supporting that product also, which is built in into this, right? So it does not end with just building a product and putting it out, right, on a production. Right. So if you look at this, then majority of the work, right, it's not just limited to building it through a code, right? The technology comes much later. What you are doing here when you are ideating and brainstorming and experimenting, actually you might even experiment without the use of technology, right? There was an example that a retail store, they thought of an idea that, hey, when our customers go into the changing room with one of the product, let's say trousers, right, and they find out that possibly the size is like smaller or bigger, whatever, they want to try a different size, they again come out and then they search for the next size and then they again go back. And this kind of reduces the level of experience that they are having at the store. So instead, let's create an iPad app. We'll put it in the changing room, and the customer can actually select the next size. They can, order it within from the changing room for trying, not for buying. And then somebody will come around and they'll hand over that product so that the customer does not have to come out of the changing room, and they will be happier and they'll be more engaged, and our sales will go up. Now that was the hypothesis, right? Now how do you try it out, right? So one approach could be, you start building an iPad app, right, and then you put it out in one store or two stores and see how that goes. Instead, the first cycle of experimenting the hypothesis was totally manual, right? So two people were asked to stand out in outside the changing room, and people will say, hey, I want this size. They'll go and they'll fetch that size, and people will try. And actually, those one or two stores where it was tried, the customer engagement, feedback, and even the sales went up. So people thought, this is great, right? Now let's build the iPad app. So they built the iPad app again, not the entire one, just like a simple MVP of it. But what happened is that when people are roaming around in the store, right, and they are able to spot the what they're wanting, the product or the size, they're able to spot that fairly easily, compared to searching for a product in an iPad, right? So now visualize that a retail store which has got what 5 or 6 thousand items, the menu and the catalog is going to be heavy, right? So a person who's in the changing room is selecting options like trousers, men, size this, color black, this and that, and then they can't make out what they're seeing on the iPad picture versus what they have, right? So actually the customer experience went down. So all I'm trying to share here is that, right, when we are thinking of a new idea, it is very important to build and test that hypothesis. And the first few cycle of hypothesis, experimentation, and testing need not even involve any build, right? So the build comes much later, right? And these iterations of testing your hypothesis could be start with a manual process. What would happen if somebody actually hands over the next size in a changing room? Then possibly as another iteration where you just create a smaller version of searching for a product. And as soon as you realize, hey, this is not as effective, you pivot out of it, right? You don't proceed further to the build. You then go on to your next idea. Now this is something that is now being used across, right? And I'm sure uh, consciously, subconsciously, the startups already do that. But I do still believe that there is room to possibly spend more focused time on the initial ideation stage and also the hypothesis test stage. I do believe that.
Yeah. So Rajan, before you move further,
Yeah.
just wish to understand that particularly from your experience,
Yeah.
which type of sectors or businesses basically one could be adopting it. And I'm asking the broader areas like the retail side or techie side, or
Yeah.
can you throw some light on it?
Sure, sure, absolutely. See, if you see retail and telecom, right, and banks, right, they are actually leading the technology change in a very very big way, right? From the time that fintechs have entered the financial services space, the level of innovation and change has picked up in a very big way in financial services. Retail and telecom have been like a more advanced technology spaces even earlier, right? So they are anyways ahead in terms of that. In terms of, if you look at some of the sectors like energy, right? Right, energy is has been traditionally right very I would say legacy, or an area where the solutions have been more or less standard, right?
Okay.
But what is also happening now is purely from a technology advancement and adoption of new ways of working. Energy teams are also picking up in a very big way in trying out, uh, you know, uh, a new landscape of technologies to implement the new set of features or business requirements. If you look at travel and hospitality, right, you'll think of examples like Airbnb, of course,
Mm.
right? Travel hospitality is again very far ahead. If you look at the kind of AR VR integration, right, that is being done in travel hospitality to give a virtual feel to people of actually being in a duty free, or actually being in a theme park. What would they see? What would they feel? It's fairly advanced. So I would say, if you look at across these sectors, all I mean at least all the sectors except possibly government, right, is experiencing a very advanced thought process in terms of disruptions, new models, right, and so on.
So we just talked that maybe idea stage, or the stage wherein they are very lean. Maybe thinking on agile or bringing agility may not be required. I'm just asking whether this, the whole concept is about bringing some technological changes, or some operational changes, or it's a discussion, or it's a training sort of. What exactly is the whole topic, whole subject of bringing agility in your business?
See, so if you're talking about why bring business agility, if I understand your
No, no, no,
question.
no. I'm asking that whether, what is exactly it is. Is it some sort of technical tool, or some sort of bringing adopting some sort of applications, or what exactly is, or suppose I need training, or I need experience. To understand how exactly I can implement. I'm just asking from the perspective that, suppose I'm running a small business.
Hmm.
Okay, there are a lot of people nowadays trying to cater the local market through, say, e-commerce. Okay,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they are of course working in a really not very convenient market, because in convenient market or location there are already very giant companies. Okay,
Yeah.
so suppose in tier 2, tier 3 city, one startup or one entrepreneur is there who is trying to cater the local market. Example,
Hmm.
it's simple. We'll take an example of grocery. So
Hmm.
he's trying to sell groceries exactly same way the Amazon or other company does at
Hmm. Hmm.
bigger level, but he's trying to do it at a district level. Okay,
Hmm.
so from that perspective, I'm asking that, if
Yeah.
suppose we want to understand and adopt the principles and practices of
Yeah.
agility,
Yeah.
so that of course all sort of requirement he would also need to know the
Yeah.
customer's
Yeah.
feedback, to understand how exactly which type of products, when, timing. All
Absolutely.
sort of things. So that's
Absolutely.
why
Absolutely.
I'm asking: is it a like some technological change, or it's a combination of several things that one can understand, and then he can adopt it as
Absolutely.
an
Okay.
industry grows?
Sure, sure. Great, great question, right? And first of all, I would say when we talk about agile, right? Start with just the mindset without any technology angle to it, right?
Okay.
Now,
Yeah.
right, so there are a lot of models that have emerged, right, during, especially during the lockdown. And I'll take an example, right? So we have a local market right near to our house, and there is a stationery shop. Now, when the unlock started happening, there were some shops that opened earlier than the others, and the stationery one opened because, you know, the students needed the pencils and books and all that. Now, this guy does not have a website, right? Right, and but people do have their phone number because, you know, they normally buy it from that shop, right? So what they started was that, hey, you know, you WhatsApp me your requirement, right? I'll put a packet together, and I'll send you a link for payment on WhatsApp, and then you pay it. It's contactless, right? Totally, right, and it is not fancy website or a mobile app. It is using what you have, right? So you have WhatsApp, and you possibly have a, you know, Google Pay, right? And what you're doing is you're manually getting the orders on WhatsApp, right? Asking people to put their house number, tower number, whatever, and you know, you're building those packets. You are then asking them to pay. They pay, then you send somebody over, and that packet is left with the guard at the tower gate, right?
Mm.
Now, the immediate switch to this model, right, can happen anywhere, right? And normally, if you start thinking that, hey, you know, how do I provide contactless payment, the first thing that possibly people will start thinking is, okay, I need to have a website that needs to have a credit card payment.
Mm.
I need to take some orders online. Nothing fancy is needed, right? It is a mindset. What is it that I have available? How can I start using it? Right, people have also started sending their you know, Google Pay or Paytm QR codes as an image. You know, scan it with the other phone, and then you pay. Nobody has to even come with the whole, that card that normally they carry, right, for the QR code. So I think these could be some very small examples, right? But then what is happening is they are solving a real problem on the ground. So when we start thinking about how to, you know, think of a change in the way we are functioning, how do we ideate, how do we test it, what is the hypothesis? Now, I'm sure the stationary guy would have tested it first with his relative or brother or whosoever, that, hey, you know, I'm going to send you this link, see if this is working or not. That is testing your hypothesis, that if I, you know, send a link to my Google Pay to a customer, would they be able to pay, right? So they would have possibly tested it with one or two people, and also made the payment and checked that they are receiving the payment, right? So the testing may or may not involve any new technology solution. It might be just leveraging what you have, possibly connecting things that you already have, right? It's more of that. That is
Oh,
how
yeah.
I see it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, so the main takeaway is having a mindset that, you know, you want to
absolutely.
do that, and yes, and you said it rightly that, you know, whenever anybody thinking to start, just think it without technological intervention, and then, you know, gradually build it. So this is quite
Absolutely.
important even for,
Yeah.
please. I mean,
Means I would add something more in this. As I understood by the answers, that you need to be agile not only in technological term but also in behavioral terms, I guess,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
only we can adopt and implement things in a better way, be it technological part in operation or execution or anything.
Absolutely.
great, sir.
Uh,
Great.
yeah. Just one more example, right? And again from the lockdown. So there is a retailer which is comparatively new to the brands, right? The big brands. And what happened is that, you know, during the lockdown, now all these big brands have their warehouses, right, where they keep their stuff. Now everything is locked, right? And their access to warehouse is through technology only, right? They don't know which product is sitting where unless they actually use robots to track, or, you know, sensors to track, right, and whatnot, right? So, and it's a huge setup. And comparatively, there is a, you know, a smaller retail brand which has their inventory in stores and some inventory also in their warehouse. right? Now that they can't open the warehouse because of the lockdown, right? What they did is that they were aware exactly of, which inventory is in which store, right? So they got their employees to actually get the inventory from the stores and deliver it to people, right? Through, like a handoff again, at a common point, and they were able to manage that in their platform, right? So even if technology is an enabler, maybe the way it has been implemented may not actually serve the purpose in quickly adapting to a new model, right? So you have all
Means
these high.
yes,
Yeah,
means
sorry, go
all
ahead.
the enablers cannot be the outcome.
Correct. Right. Right. So you might have,
There would be
Uh,
another example I like to give.
I
Maybe, sorry to cut
uh,
you off. You can go ahead.
go on, go
I
on.
have a question here.
Yeah.
You talked about retail and telecom industry.
Yeah.
What could be the, I mean, technological advancement, or you may say the agile process you are talking about for textile and agriculture? Because till date, in textile, where we are, I think, second largest exporter to the world in textile market. I mean, India is the second largest exporter in the world. So, what agile process you think could be adopted so that we can uh, top the ladder in textile export? Do you have any suggestion for that?
So I mean, I am not honestly, I'm not following the trends on textile, but one of the thing that from my own personal experience, right, is definitely something that can be bridged. If you go to buy something, right, a cloth or something, or from an e-commerce site, now you get great pictures, right, and possibly also some good description on what the style is, right, what the color is, and all of that. However, you actually don't know much about the quality of the cloth, right? Now, uh, most of the brands have actually adopted, the what used to be a quality or a category. For example, if you talk about Banarsi, or if you talk about Kanjivaram or whatnot, right? Now, what has happened is that some brands have also named their businesses with that name, right? And everything in their site you will see with the same name. Now, you actually don't know, it is hard to say, are we talking about the brand? Are we talking about the cloth? Are you talking about the quality? Right? And there's no way to figure out unless you actually buy the stuff. Now, of course, you do get to return it if you don't like, but then again, that's a wasted cycle. Now, one of the things which possibly could be a differentiator for somebody who's doing work locally, right, for the textile in India, is actually trace the origins, right? And if you, and I'm not talking about the whole blockchain implementation or anything of that sort, but it could be something very simple, right? Uh, who is the person who's actually made it, right? What is the actual quality? Is it to be worn in summers? Is it to be worn in winters? Because this kind of information, frankly, you cannot see it on many of the e-commerce sites, right? And you actually also don't know the origin of the product from within India also, right? Forget about whether it is coming from any other source. So putting an origin of the product will also help that region grow, right? If there are people concentrated in a remote area who are producing great work in terms of textile or anything else, right? You can actually put them on the map. And if you start connecting, them with the bigger ecosystem through a differentiator, which is actually their real quality, the real story, how what they're producing is different from anybody else that you're seeing on the e-commerce, is where the value creation can happen for them.
Okay, great, great. It's really helpful, actually.
No, exactly.
One
Exactly.
more
This
thing.
morning, sorry, Sandeep. Exactly this
Yes,
morning it
yes, please.
happened. I just I was in a grocery trying to buy. There, there is a sanitizer. It says that Dham Pure. So there is a very famous company, this Dhampur in the sugar.
Yeah.
But I tried everything, but I could not find it out that is it really from Dhampur or it's The name is mentioned there, so I left it. I know I left it. So yes, I mean,
So here I would like to add that in that Dhampur where it's written, how do we apply this agile process so that it could be recognized that yeah, it's from there.
Yeah, yeah. See, I think we can apply the design thinking and lean startup to start with, right? For example, let's say Dhampur does not have right now a setup to connect the local producers with the bigger ecosystem. So, what could be a tryout of that in Dhampur, right? Do we just need to set up one spot where we can start tracing, let's say 5 or 10 people, and try out with them? What would happen when we bring them on the radar? Do people recognize it? Do people appreciate it? How do we highlight the quality of their product versus anybody else that is available? Right. So try out in actually a physical space. Of course, you can use like 4G, 5G, whatever technology, e-commerce. That's all secondary. But somebody will have to actually go and possibly initially connect that location and those people with another ecosystem, which could be like a purely offline physical process, right? It's like we're talking about telemedicine, right? But then you cannot have a solution of telemedicine just assuming that I will enable one site where the streaming will happen and some doctor will log in and they'll tell you, because on the other side, when you actually go to the village and in a clinic, possibly they didn't have electricity for 3 days. The phone that you have put in is not charged. The camera is supposed to be directly connected to the plug. There is no electricity. They don't have a generator, right? People line up 3 days, they go back, they're just waiting for the electricity. That's a real problem. Now how do we solve that? That means somebody will have to actually go there physically, figure out what is the need of the hour, do some tryouts. Now the tryout in this case could be, okay, if we are setting up a location, do we also need like a very small generator which will run on, let's say, kerosene? And in such a scenario, we'll be able to still provide the service, right?
Great. And one more last question from my side, Shashiji. I
yeah.
would request you to excuse me for this one last
Yes, yes,
question. Uh, this agile process, we are talking about the product, but is it really possible that it could be applied in innovation as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. See, agile actually, just I would say decouple the whole, agile as in agile certification, agile implementation. Just decouple, just focus on the mindset, and the mindset is how do you reduce the time between getting a feedback on whatever you're doing, which is reducing the length of a feedback loop. Now, what is a feedback loop? Feedback loop is a validation of something, right? You write a code, you get a feedback, hey, the code is not working, which could be through a code review, which could be through testing. Similarly, for businesses, what could be a feedback loop? It could be a validation of whether my product is right, whether my business model is correct, right? Whether the audience that I've thought of are the right audience. So a quick validation of that, right, is bringing the agile mindset into the whole business agility space. And if you see, many organizations have now formalized creating a hypothesis, creating a decision when they will pivot on either progressing with building it or closing down that idea and then moving to the next. Because ultimately, you are assigning budgets to tryouts, you are investing time. Somebody is actually connecting more people with that idea, right? And if that idea kind of forms up, it might actually become a new product, right? So it has to be thought through and validated, and that validation will need investment. And hence people kind of put a decision box saying, okay, this looks great, we have done 3 tryouts, now let's start building a part of it, not the entire thing, right? Let's start building. So this entire thought process is the agile mindset, more agile way of thinking about something.
Okay.
Great. Thank you
Yeah.
so
And
much.
to
Thank you
addition
so
to
much.
that, maybe. Sorry,
Hey,
go. So
Roshan,
just to addition to that. Sorry,
I
go ahead. Go
we
ahead.
just, we just need to take this guy. I mean, I just promised him. So see now. I mean, we will understand why we are doing this EAI and this sort of weekend sessions. There is a class 8th student, and he's learning web development. He has done some coding. He's, now his question is that, he's asking basically uh, what to do. I mean, he has worked with some startups, and so some guidance. He needs some guidance from you.
He is just in class 8. I'm really
Wow.
That's
surprised.
amazing, you know.
Yes,
And that's
that's
what
what.
even Bill Gates or like Steve Bennett have said that, you know, and if
Great.
somebody starts coding before 10, between 6 to 10, he would be master of, himself, and he can figure out that sort of stuff. So
So his
he's a
name is
great
Adarsh Upadhyay.
mind.
Great Adarsh. I just
One
we are.
feedback which I will have is just keep doing it. Whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. And back to Rajan,
No, but
We'll
please.
be yes.
Rajan, I mean, we would like to understand. He's saying that he got good, good knowledge of startup. So this is one thing, that what is good, and
Awesome.
tech world. In he feels that, and then he also feels that he's confused what exactly he should do. I mean, continue studies, or so.
Uh,
All our experience,
I
Rajan.
would like to counter others that are you really in class 8?
No, I mean,
So I think first of all, others, right? I mean, right. Congratulations on wherever you are, right? I mean, I think it's awesome. Just hearing, what all you are doing, and how far you are thinking. Honestly, when I was in class 8, all these concepts were alien to me, and I wouldn't think so far. So I think you are very ahead in the curve. Now, I would say continue with the studies, right? For sure, don't drop that. But if you are really passionate about coding and startups, right? Start joining up with somebody who's doing some work. Possibly enable one or two things for them, right? It could be a small feature that you might build for them if you are passionate about coding. Go ahead and do that, right? Create a small website for them and see if it helps them in their business, right? Whosoever is, looking for help in that, just try out that experiment. And if you are doing it for free to start with, I don't think people will mind.
yeah, great. So,
And then to add on, I will suggest that try to get into some hackathon, because hackathons are happening from Capgemini, Cognizant, global hackathon as well. And as early you started coding, that's the best part. But definitely, yeah, stay with your education, and this could be additional, but keep doing it, right? And you can look for Capgemini hackathon or Cognizant or Accenture. They all are doing hackathon, and even I know companies like Tech Mahindra, they have research labs, okay, where they call students from as early as maybe like class 3 4 to code. I have been into a lot of Salesforce or ServiceNow, and they also bring a lot of students to code at very early stage. And it's a very good exercise for the brain. People who code, everybody cannot do it. So stay positive. I think whatever you're doing is good, and keep a tab on it. Don't get lost. Extremely important.
yeah,
Because if you get
And
lost,
Absolutely.
and
you will, yeah, lose the interest. So don't lose the interest. Just do things and keep your head in control,
yes.
and things
I
and
will
think
fall
and
in
some
place.
part of presentation is left, Rajan, so that we will just finish it,
Yeah,
and
sure,
yes.
then we'll come back, take some questions, some more questions.
sure, absolutely. Right. So this is again, right. I think we've kind of talked in detail about the whole, uh, you know, think of an idea, build it, test it, right? So I'll skip this for now, but I think this just kind of extends the discussion that we already have, right? One of the things which is also now getting mainstream is the whole conversation around value stream, and you guys might hear it. Now, if you think of a journey where a bank is giving loan, right? Now think of the steps that are on this journey. The first step could be just attracting the customers, right? Giving them some quick quotes, then getting them to complete an application, then saying, okay, we will test your eligibility on how much you can get, not get, then actually extending the loan, awarding it, setting payment terms, and then the customer repays the loan, and then finally the loan closes and the bank earns money in terms of the repayment. Now, if this is one product, right, of mortgages or housing loan that the bank is offering, then think of this as a value stream. Now, when companies are moving from a project to a product mindset, right, they are thinking in terms of what are the products that I'm making which are giving me money? What are the steps involved in that journey, right? And that is how they are crafting their value stream. Now, what is the importance of talking about value stream? We are saying the budgets that the companies invest in, they invest in a value stream, because they are very clear that, okay, this is the product line that I'm going to extend, this is the product line that I'm going to slow down. Possibly at the time of COVID, you would see that the housing loans have slowed down, right? So how do I earn money? So possibly I'll have to think of another product line, right? I'm not sure if you guys follow Airbnb, but during the lockdown, as the all the houses and the villas and all that they rent out to customers, that business stopped, right? So Airbnb ended up letting go of a lot of people, right? But then what they also did is they thought of a new business model, and they brought a lot of people online, and they started selling the online experiences. Right now, think of somebody who is very good at making a cake or a pasta. They are putting a session of 1 hour on Airbnb, and they're saying, okay, I'll teach you how to make a good cake or a pasta, right? And people are actually buying it. Now that's the revenue model that Airbnb shifted immediately, like in 10 to 15 days, after realizing that, hey, our core business of how we are running our renting out our homes and villas. Now nobody is traveling, nobody is renting them out. So what do we do? That's a new business model. Now that's an example of business agility, right? Where the agile mindset is at the core of how people are running their business, how they're thinking of their product lines. So coming back to value stream, we're saying your product lines will be some kind of a value stream, and you will invest in a value stream as a business. Your customers, right, they will experience every step of this journey, right? For example, if I'm a customer who's taking a loan from a bank, right, I would interact with the loan application interface. Now that could be online or it could be offline. And if it is offline and there is like a 50-page form to apply for a loan, and there is a competitor bank which just gives me a loan based on like a 2-pager form, I'll not put in the hassle of completing 50 pages, right? So the customer's experience in this journey on every step is very important on how this value stream will convert to a dollar. Also the feedback, right? The customer is giving some feedback, whether he is feeling good, not good, great, whatnot. And everything that is associated with the value stream, whether it is people, processes, tools, is part of the value stream. Now, what does that mean, right? So you'll see a lot of organizations are actually doing a reorg. They are restructuring themselves. What used to be a legal department, a marketing department, right? And actually staff operation for running the systems for a credit card is no, there are no separate departments now, right? You have a value stream called credit cards, and everybody who's whether legal, marketing, IT, non-IT, if they are doing work for the credit card value stream, they will be part of that. Similarly, any tools that they are using, any processes. So it is an independent, think of it as an independent stream of work that is happening still within the organization, but they get their own budgets. They will have to report their earnings, their profits, their losses, and how they are thinking about improving the entire experience, the product on every step of this journey, right? So now suddenly the accountability has shifted from departments onto the actual products. That's the shift. And hence, when we talk about a product mindset, it is important to understand that it is not just about thinking of how a product looks like. It is also about how this product is positioned inside the organization. How does the employees or people who are using that product interact with it, how they are part of it, right? And also how the systems that enable this product for the company and for their customers, how are those systems also managed, right? So now this is like a very, I would say, important concept, and the shift is real, and companies are actually redrawing their entire organization around value streams, right? It's a real shift. Okay. The other trend that I talked about earlier was the industry blur, right? So you have a mobile banking app, and you have an app which is booking your cab. Now, if your cab booking app has a better experience than your mobile booking app, would you use your mobile banking app? Right? You would think that, hey, cab hailing service has got better experience. I can find out more information on where my cab is. And whereas if I use my mobile banking app, it is so difficult to use it. Right? It's impossible to find out my account balance, or it is impossible to find out when my fixed deposit is maturing. Right? So what has happened is that there is a lot of pressure on both sides, right, to increase their quality, it increase their experience levels. And it is not just about how the look and feel of the app is, it is also about what is the functionality it is able to provide. Right? For example, in case of a cab hailing app, you are providing very detailed information that the cab is 5 minutes away, right, they will reach you via this road, so you exactly know what's happening. Whereas if you are looking at uh, your banking app, then possibly you are feeling lost in terms of how do you use it. Okay. And a great example is Amazon, right? I mean, look at how Amazon is present in almost all the industries, and the experience that they are providing in almost all these sectors is seamless, right? Whether it is your movie streaming, whether it is your delivery, right, or the audible books, or the payment service that they have built, it's the experiences will always be at the same level. Now, when you quickly get down to what is trending in 2020, right, and I'll not spend much time on this, right, I'll just introduce the concepts, right. So I think distributed and agile at scale is definitely trending, right, and value stream management, I'll come to that, right. So what's happening is that the agile adoption is definitely increasing. Majority of the people, and now I'm talking about technology, sorry, just call out, now I'm talking about the pure technology trends. Now the people who have adopted Scrum, like you can see, right, majority of them are using Scrum, and then there are all these variations. What's important here is, right, that if you look at the comments here, right, 81% of the respondents said their organization is agile team, where the member of the same team do not all work in the same location. Now, till few years ago, it was said that you can't do agile and technology unless everyone is co-located, and we've seen during the whole pandemic also that assumption got invalidated. And it is not just even remote locations now, it is everyone remote from their homes, right? So we've kind of gotten to a stage where co-located and distributed teams are not a constraint, and we think that this trend of adoption will kind of rise further across more teams, right? And the other trend here in the agile space is people are actually adopting frameworks which will enable scaling of the agile, right? So by scaling, we means it is not just limited to the technology teams, right? You would also include other teams in the organization who are helping in the value stream, right? Who are making those decisions at the portfolio level, right? And SAFe is one of the leading framework which is quite dominant in the market. Then you have many other frameworks, right? But the summary here is that it is not just about adopting agile at a team level, it is also about scaling it across multiple teams. The other trend is the whole value stream management, right? So we saw the value stream mapping. So I'll just skip back a few slides quickly, right? We talked about value stream. So we took this example of the loan journey. Now what is also happening is that the businesses would want to know that they're putting in money in one of the product line, that product line is doing something, okay, we are optimizing it, and then there is a technology which is enabling all of that. But to business, they just want one consolidated view that, hey, I have put in $1 million in increasing the offerings or increasing the value of my product of, let's say, credit card? Where is it, right? What is the value that I'm getting out of it? So this is concept of top down approaching everything, right? From the view of a consolidated business product line down to the IT systems, and showing the flow of value. So sorry, I'll pause. Any questions? Or I can complete and then we can come to question. Is that okay? Possibly another 5 minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right. Now, when you come to DevOps, right, the simple definition is you build it, you run it, right? I mean, most of the people who are doing coding or development, right, they think their job ends when they have completed the coding and they put it on production, but it does not, right? I mean, if you are building something, you need to make sure it also runs and the service is top notch, right? And broadly, development and operations, when they work together, and again, I'm talking about technology teams, right? They bring together an experience where the new functionalities are released with speed, possibly every week or every 2 weeks, and they are also stable, when they are released, right? So there is a stability and reliability built into it, very tightly integrated, and it's not an afterthought, right? So it's not that you release something, then you spend 2 weeks on stabilizing it, then you again release something, you spend time stabilizing it. It is an inherent part of the entire thought process on how you build it. All right. And one of the trend that we are seeing for 2020 is there is something called Dev Everything Ops, right? So we are now further extending the DevOps loop and saying security is also going to be part of it. Performance testing will also be part of it, and so on, right? So ultimately, this will have an impact on the skills of the developer, right? So today, if somebody is, let's say, coding in Java, right, right, and they just code in Java and then they put out a code for deployment, they'll also have to now possibly start thinking about, okay, how would this get tested, right? How would the security scan work on it, right? Do I need to fix any security issues in this code, or is the performance of this code right? Right. So now this is going more holistic, where it is not just about coding; it is about actually thinking about all the aspects that are needed to make it a successful service on production. Right. The other trend is, converting your monoliths into microservices, right? What that means is that if you have a very big package, which is very tightly bound to your databases or stuff, it has business logic also written inside. Now, when you try doing a release with a change, right? So you make some change to this big monolith package and you release it to market, then it takes a lot of time because everything is very tightly coupled, right? You'll have to test each and everything to make sure nothing else is breaking. To converting it to services which are more smaller components, right? And they can be changed and released and deployed on their own without impacting anything else, right? But so organizations are shifted to microservices now, right? And the intent is not just to adopt the technology, but the intent is to reduce the time to market of a new feature. If I introduce a new feature in a monolith, okay, I make the change, then I test the entire monolith to make sure nothing else is breaking. I also test the entire database to make sure nothing has broken, to a point where I'm just changing one part of the system and I'm making sure that it is not impacting anyone else, right? And I'm able to make releases much faster, right? That's why we are adopting it. But what this also does is it gets very complicated, right? I mean, this is a service map for Amazon and Netflix, and you can imagine the kind of complex services, dependencies, right, and sequences that they have. So you also then start thinking about how do you enhance your support teams, right? How do you enhance your production? And there is this concept of site reliability engineering, which is basically bridging the gap of managing your productions and services in a very high performing way, right? That's the another trend in DevOps. So just summarizing, I think the way to go about any transformation or any new idea is start with the why. So start from left to right. Why are you doing something? Why you want to do it? Right? That's your why. And then you figure out, okay, what are the tools you want to use? Right? So tooling comes secondary. I think one of the problem that I'm also seeing in conversations is that, hey, I know this tooling. I know how to use 5 screwdrivers, 1 spanner, and so on. Now let me go and figure out where I can apply them. Well, that's a wrong way of approaching it, right? So start with what is the problem statement, why you're doing what you're doing, right? And then try to find out what tools you can use, right, to make that happen, right? I mean that was the last slide, and I just wanted to kind of leave with that note that start with the why.
It's really, it's really the multi-billion suggestion that don't see your tools to start something, but you see the problems which you can solve. So moving on, we'll just take a question from Yogesh Jain. He's writing, what is your recommendation to slice the idea to build in agile way? Idea to build in agile way.
Right. So let me just quickly go back, right? And while I talk through, I'll just use the slide in the background. Right. Now, let's see this, right? I mean, you're wanting to build an idea where you are thinking of introducing a new type of a loan, right? Let's say you are clubbing the housing loan and the loan on the insurance policy or any kind of mix, and you're saying this is a new product that I'm introducing. Now, one way to test out that idea is just focus on, okay, I have an idea on how I will attract a new customer. Just try out here. Okay, how I can generate a quick rate note, right? That is how you can slice possibly to start with. But the other way is that, hey, do I would this product actually resonate with the market? In which case, I will select one way of attracting customer. I will select one way of generating a quick rate note, a quote, and I'll just use possibly the simplest loan application. I'll use the simplest business rule of deciding on the eligibility and awarding the loan and getting the payments and closing. So I'm going to use like a very thin slice of all of these steps that are involved in the journey of this new product, and I'm going to test that out, right? Now, how much of this I automate or use technology versus how much of that can be offline? For example, I already know 5 customers in person who are looking for a product where they can also use the insurance policies that they have that will reduce their, let's say, loan amount by whatever X compared to a pure housing loan kind of a thing. So let me, instead of building a entire campaign management and marketing department to attract customer, I already know 5 people, right? I'm going to use them as my customer base. Quick rate quote. Okay, I'm not going to build any fancy application. I'm going to use an Excel, and I know what they are wanting, what is their current insurance policy limit, and so on, and I'll build them a rate quote, and let's see where that goes, and so on. So at every step you validate whether you want to actually apply technology, you want to try out something offline first, right? And in the journey, what are you validating, right? For example, the example that I took earlier of a retail store handing over another item in the changing room, when they did that manually, it worked well. But when they actually introduced an iPhone or an iPad app, the customer actually slowed down. They could not search the product, right? So the first iteration of validating your idea could be a thin slice across all these steps. Steps could be manual, steps could be a bit of technology, just supplying enough functionality for people to use, and you end up validating your idea. So now you might get those 5 customers, and now you might want to extend. So okay, you will say, okay, this is all great. I faced problem in generating a rate quote using an Excel. Let me automate it. Let me create a tool, or see if there is a tool that is available that I can plug in. And then you again go back, right, and sell it to like 5 more people, and then you figure out if you need technology solution in other areas, right? That's how I would go about slicing it.
Thank you, Rajan. So really nice. Um, got any questions, Roshan, Sandeep?
I think
Maybe I'll add
Roshan
another
had
example,
questions.
like
No, if you have any
realistic
questions,
example.
example.
I like to share something very different. So I'll take the names as well, like in this IND Bank and then ICICI Bank or maybe Kotak, right? So now that we cannot open the bank account like without going to the bank, right? So Kotak have came up with this plan of you can just give the KYC online to your Aadhaar card and getting online on a video call, and it's happened in like less than 5 minutes. So the whole process of going to the bank, meeting and filling out the document is coming back to like 5 minutes shortcut process, right? So and that way they are able to reach out to remote and anywhere they want to. They are not limited, right? So before, if you will think of the banks used to have, okay, they are good services in Bangalore, but they are not good in Pune, or maybe they are good in Pune, they are not good in Bihar. But now with this kind of technology and tools, we are able to do or give the same kind of services, be it Bangalore or Bihar or Jharkhand, right? So this is what we can do with the customer interaction, and like if we evolve with the right agile methodology, right? Because we need to keep evolving and think out of the box
Absolutely.
how we can innovate in given situation. So
So why
always
are
try
you
to kind of
focusing only on the loan and the banking system?
No,
right.
I
I
mean,
mean, this slide
it's important. See, we discussed that, of course, the banking and the bigger organizations, it's required. But here today's session, our objective was to also, understand that how we can be more agile, we can adopt the practices in beginning, in our whatever stage we are, whatever things we are doing it. If we are adopting the problem solving solutions to the society, I mean to our customers, and we are following also these trends and technologies and understanding, definitely it will help growing your organizations in a organic way. So
See, just one thing that I wanted to add, right? And whether whether we are a startup or whether we are a medium organization or whatnot, right? So what's also happening interestingly is that when the organizations at scale, they start adopting some trends, right? Invariably, they are going to pull in their service providers. They are going to pull in their suppliers into that same model very soon, right? So if a large corporation is now adopting value stream for their internal reorganization, so the way you would interact with that company as a service provider would also fundamentally change. So earlier, if you had a legal department and a marketing department, and you would know 20 people there, now suddenly if they have reorged their organization, and now they are saying, this is my credit card team, this is my debit card team, this is my housing loan team, and the teams are split across technology, legal and marketing, all within the value stream in this example that I'm taking. Then if I'm a small startup, let's say 5 or 10 people, and I'm working with that organization and providing my services, which could be training, which could be consulting, which could be setting up their infrastructure, which could be setting up their new office space, whatever it is, I'll have to come to terms with this reality that what is this that they're doing, why are they doing it. So I need to understand it, one. And of course, the way I would get contracted in future, the way I would also get work in future also might change, right? Because of the way they are structuring themselves. So I think sooner or later, people will get drawn into this model. They'll be aware of what is happening because all around them, the network, majority of the people, majority of the organization will start following the same structure. It is how I see it.
Yeah, of course, being agile means you are putting yourself in a position wherein you are continuously adopting the market changes, and you are taking care of individual preferences. And then, in particularly in current scenario wherein we are all undergoing through a unprecedented situation wherein nobody thought of. So the agile organizations, agile startups would definitely be able to survive and grow. Okay, so the fundamentals are important, and at which stage one can adopt it, what are the technologies, what are the investment resources. I think Rajan said it quite well, that it's when you start thinking of it, uh, even it can be thought of without technological intervention, and then but you just have in mind that the situation and your several things are undergoing a change. So if you are having a very strong fundamentals of having a you know agile structure and your startup, you're going to survive, of course, and be and also grow uh, uh, with your product and services. So I think we have reached I mean, it's already 12:20. So yeah, we have taken few questions, and if anything is left, we'll request again to write us at connect@eiindia.com. We'll take the questions to Rajan, try to get him again if required. And for today, I thank a lot, Rajan, for because we have been talking about the topics which are important, but today topic I also felt that though it will sound definitely technical, and something which only the bigger companies can adopt, but our idea is to also make it quite simple and explain it that it's not for the bigger organizations only. One can adopt it from the very beginning in a various way. So thank you for giving keeping it very simple, clarifying it, and I hope that our startups and youth, and thank you that eighth class guy, he would also understand. So I think we are successful
I
in
would
our.
add further thank you notes
Yeah,
to
please.
Rajan ji that many of the terms, technology terms, and many behavioral terms which you used was actually alien to me as well. And being a seeker, I learned a lot from you, and hope we'll continue further in learning process, and we'll do another session. I request from Shashi ji that we would request Mr. Rajan to get him on board for another session for next time whenever he is available as per his time, because there's a lot to learn from him for the startups and the small businesses as well. So thank you so
So,
much,
yeah,
Mr.
for next
Rajan.
time, I mean, what we can do, Sandeep that today we just try to tell him that kindly keep it simple for our startups and entrepreneurs. I mean, next time if we are doing it again, I mean, we'll just ask questions from and then summarize it, send it to him so that he can be prepared, and
Anyway, when we'll share all this live show to all the SMs, we are going to get a lot of questions which will be shooting at, at you later on.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
So thank you so much for inviting me. It was a pleasure, and I really enjoyed the interactions. And I'm glad that I could be of some value in this whatever time that we spent. Look forward to our next interaction. Right, I'm excited to contribute whatever I can to the ecosystem.
so, so thanks a lot, Rajan. Thanks a lot,
Thank you.
Roshan, Sandeepji. It was really
Thanks a
wonderful.
lot,
thank you,
Rajan. Yeah,
thank
definitely.
Thank
you,
you.
thank you so much.
Very good day.
Yeah. Thanks a
Enjoy
lot,
your
Rajan. You
weekend.
all have a good day
Thank you.
Thank you.
and have a great
Thanks.
weekend.